Hey guys, welcome back to Beat the Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Ron MQ.
I'm your co-host, Big Ant. What's going on, y'all?
Yes, sir. We are our first live recording. You're probably watching this over here on YouTube. It's also gonna be on Spotify anywhere. Start posting on TikTok. Make sure you check that out. But Beat the Clock Podcast, your weekly stop for real NFL, NBA, any sport. We got good conversations, real reactions to the game, and real debates with our opinions. But getting into it, week 16 gave us everything: chaos, controversy, half swing, legacy games, and maybe the wildest ending we've ever seen in NFL history. I mean, this was the week where contenders got exposed, pretenders started panicking, and some teams flat out changed how we look at the playoff picture. We're not going to recap every game. We're only going to do the games that matter. We're going to break down the real questions and set the tone for the stretch.
Here
Let's
we
get
go.
into it, guys. Starting off with the Rams versus Seahawks, this game was absolutely insane. Seattle winning to this game. They were down 14? They were down
30 to
They
14.
were down 30 to
fourth.
14 going into the fourth, and they absolutely just came back, went into overtime, and probably had a lucky touchdown or a lucky 2-point conversion. But
Yeah, debatable.
I mean, for 3 quarters of this game looked finished. The Rams were in total control. They're dominating just everything, the time possession through the air, and it felt like Seattle had no answers. Then, they just came back, and Sam Darnold and the offense was doing their thing, and the Rams only scored 7 points in that stretch.
Yeah. Firstly, this game was an instant classic. Big overtime game, big playoff contention here, playoff swings. So Rams jumped from the first seed to the fifth seed now after the loss. But yeah, it was a really good game from the Seahawks because they really showed they can play with those big time teams. And their schedule, they really haven't played many two competitive teams compared to what the Rams have
Mhm.
played, but obviously they can win big games at home, on the road, doesn't really matter for them. And it showed all around from special teams, defense, and the offense. They had the punt return from Rashid Shaheed, and then they got the 2-point conversion out of that to make it an 8-point game. Then JSN, after a no, literally irrelevant in the first half, really showed up in the second half for his team. Sam Darnold was able to find some good spots for him. And that controversial 2-point conversion it was a big blow for the Rams, but I'm not too worried for them. But one thing that could be an issue for them is their defense. They played the last 3 or 4 games they played. Those teams are still in playoff contention, and they have allowed 31 points to all those teams. And they're 2-2 in the last 4 after starting out 9-2. Um, I think their defense has slowed down a little bit, but offensively, obviously, they're still great. But I'm not too worried about the defense in the playoffs, especially.
No, absolutely. And, I got to give a shout out to Puka Nakua having a monster game. Same with Matthew Stafford. But, this game wasn't a real loss for the Rams because, they still put up 37 points or
Yeah.
the 37, yeah. But I mean, the defense definitely didn't look great, especially one of the better defenses in the league, and that was going to be the issue coming into this game because the Seahawks offense looked pretty good all season, especially with Jackson Smith and Jigba. But I mean, Seahawks really dominated the fourth, and even winning the overtime. This was absolutely probably one of the best games we've seen all year.
For sure. Yeah, instant classic, I said. But quick question for you, Big Rye. The Seahawks now the consensus number 1 team, in your opinion?
For sure. I mean, they beat the Rams. Yeah, I get the Rams beat them a couple weeks ago, but
Yeah.
they beat the Texans, they beat the Jags, they beat the Bucks, and they beat the Steelers. I mean, that resume is legit.
Mhm.
And I mean, who else would be the best? Weeks ago the Rams beat them,
For
but
sure.
it matters now.
Yep.
Seahawks beat them when it actually did matter.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that, like I said before, they're just all around great. From the
Absolutely.
special teams, they do everything right. Defense, of course, Mike McDonald, head coach, does a really good job defensively. And offensively, they have their franchise guy finally, Sam Darnold. After losing Russ, they bounced from quarterback to quarterback from there. But he was able to bring everything together. This offense, JSN, showing he could be a top 3 receiver in the league, which is huge.
Absolutely.
Offensive line has looked really good as well, which has given, Darnold a lot of time in the pocket, and all around, they're just a really good team. But alright, so next we'll go up into the next game. Well, a big game Saturday night, Packers at the Bears. Packers led this one 16-6 with 5 minutes left in the game. Bears were able to get a field goal about 5 minutes or 2 minutes, and then they recovered an onside kick, dropped by Romeo Doubs, and then Williams led the game-tying touchdown to go into overtime. And with a big touchdown to DJ Moore for the game winner, 46 yards in the end zone. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I told you coming into this game who's gonna win, and you can go ahead and fry Big Ant because I mean, obviously the Bears didn't start right, but when you have such an amazing coach in Ben Johnson, you're able to make those deep game comebacks, especially down 16-6.
Mhm.
It did feel over for the Bears, but yet again, I didn't have doubts, especially going into overtime, and that might have been one of the best game-winning plays I've seen in a long time because that the ball was perfect, the catch was perfect. I mean, Caleb Williams didn't start hot, but he did end up having a good game. Finishing out.
Mhm.
Same with DJ Moore, he's been slow. And the real guy, the game I would give the winning game to is Cario Santos, a guy who's been really inconsistent all season long for Chicago. He had a perfect night, and he was just, especially with the wind, he was nailing every kick.
Right.
So I really gotta give props to him and the Chicago coaching staff because they did absolutely everything right. And like I said, the Bears are the better team. They're fighting for the first overall or first seed, and they just clinched the playoffs. The real question to ask, Big Ant: do the Packers win this game healthy? No Jordan Love for most of it. Malik Willis did not look that bad, but they also had no Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I'm gonna say the Packers. I think they win because they had that healthy team. They had their top guys a couple weeks ago, and they won. I know it was at home, but when you're missing your quarterback best, that's usually your top guy that you need on your team, and you got the backup in there, it's a little hard. And you're missing easily one of the best defensive players in the league. Like, that's a big presence on the field that Caleb Williams doesn't have to worry about. So he was able to sit in the pocket most of the time for Williams, and that's kind of allowed him to kind of settle in and make those touchdown throws to win the game for them. But yeah, in my opinion, easily I think they win without a doubt with at least Jordan Love for the majority of the game. But that's not how it went down. The Bears took the win, the Packers lost, and the Packers still got to clinch a playoff spot. They still got to win a couple games. Lions trying to come in, so they just lost on Sunday night. Yeah.
Finishing up that Bucks Panthers. I mean, this game was great. It came down definitely to the last drive, but Baker Mayfield has been terrible the last couple weeks. He threw that late game interception, which just ended it. And I mean, the Panthers now control the NFC South. Now the Bucks still have a higher chance to win this, but I mean, this is just sad. I mean, the Bucks are just very dysfunctional, and something obviously needs to change. I said this last week. I mean, I don't think they're a playoff team. Todd Bowles has been not a great coach this year. Hasn't really done much for the Bucks. Baker's obviously struggling. We don't really know what the reason is other than, just playing like a bum. Um, I mean, the Panthers defense was, dominant all game
Mhm.
long. And, I mean, this was a good game for the Panthers, but, there's obviously still some growth needed for this team.
Oh yeah, for sure. Under second year head coach Dave Canales. Shot, yeah, good defense is the main reason the Panthers are able to potentially be in control of the South right now is because of the defense. The offense has looked very inconsistent, although they have shown signs of that greatness that they can be, but it's just a lot of inconsistency. But the offensive line has looked all right, and I think Bryce Young has looked better than he was, obviously, his rookie year. And a big question for you, Big Rye, is Bryce Young good enough for the Panthers to win a Super Bowl within the next 5 years at least?
Absolutely not. I don't like the growth from Bryce Young. I mean, he takes so many sacks. He's kind of, if I got to compare it to a player, I think he's like Jordan Love. I think he plays really inconsistent. He takes a lot of sacks that he doesn't need to, but I think the kid's not bad. I think he can be good enough, to take this team to the playoffs, but Super Bowl, hell no. Especially with this roster, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how they turned it around from last season, good for them. No one expected that. But no, they're not winning a Super Bowl with this team. Maybe if they get more superstars, more good all around guys. But with this team now, he's still passed for under 200 yards a game, but yeah, it's pointing up for him. So, if he keeps developing well, maybe. But as of now, how he's developing now. But their coach, he took over like a big mess going on in Carolina. They didn't have their first round pick a couple 2 years ago. They were 2-15. Now they're 8-6 with playoff control. That's huge for them.
No, yeah, definitely. I agree with everything you said right there. I mean, like, obviously, this team still needs a lot to work on offensively and defensively, but this is a very good stepping stone for them and the head coach in the front office. And with Bryce Young's ability to kind of, he's been able to extend plays better this year. And he took 62 sacks his rookie year and has only taken 25 so far this year, which is a huge step up. So I think he's being more confident in the pocket, which is big. He already has 8 wins this year. He only had 6 wins his first 2 years, and his passing rating is nearly 20 points higher since his rookie year, which is, I believe, a very big jump from what he was. Bro. Big dog. So, yeah. It was a big blow when they traded their first overall pick to get him, and then they got the first overall pick again, but they didn't own it, which was when they went 2-15. I feel like his growth has been a little slow, but he's still very young. I believe only 23, 24 years old, so he definitely still has a lot of time to learn, and I think his growth will hopefully double next year, and then he'll hopefully get those star player guys. The team will build around him, and I think they can win or at least get to good playoff success, a good contending team within the next 5 years, which is a very big step up from what they were just 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
So finally, we got 2 more games here. Very big controversial game. Steelers at the Lions. Steelers defense stepped up, I believe, this game, only holding the Lions to 17 points, pretty much the whole game, the first 56 minutes of the game. Although they almost did break down after a Boswell missed a 37-yard field goal, which would have made it an 8-point game, but left it at 29-24. That controversial drive, the Lions had 2 offensive pass interferences against them that negated 2 different touchdowns. One being that little pick play that Isaac Tesla had for Amon-Ra Tutty. And then the last play of the game to St. Brown, ball right at that goal line, offensive pass interference on St. Brown. Tough. Although the Lions are still in playoff contention but need a lot of different things to help them. But I think the biggest problem was they didn't get the run game going.
Absolutely.
Only 7 attempts for Gibbs, 2 yards rushing. Although he did get a receiving touchdown this game, it's just, I think it's too predictable for the Lions. Just, they're going to pass, so why even try to stop the run? And then when they did run, it was mostly just with Montgomery in the backfield. But a little mess happened with DK Metcalf as well.
I saw that, yep. Going into halftime,
yeah.
Expecting a suspension from him there for sure.
Probably, yeah.
But just go deeper into that. I was watching this game last night. I do have Jahmyr Gibbs on my fantasy team, but like I just question first and second down. Why are you not running the ball?
Right.
I get your quarterback. You have a decent quarterback. You got a good offense. You got a good core. But you have one of the best running backs in football. You'd think you would, split up the carries more. Run the ball more. But yeah, this offense is definitely way too predictable, especially with this defense not playing,
For sure.
really good. They did lose both their coordinators coming into the season.
Yeah,
They lost Aaron
that's
Glenn,
big.
to the Jets, and Ben Johnson to the Bears, they're better than the Lions. And that, that's got to hurt. If you're Dan Campbell, you are this Lions offense, that's got to hurt you seeing your offense coordinator go to this division rival, and now they're doing better than you. But no, things absolutely need to change in Detroit if they want to even think about making the playoffs. But this year, their season's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's too predictable. You don't run the ball enough, so obviously they're going to play more pass oriented. And that's really what they expect to see out of Jahmyr Gibbs, is just getting him in the pass game. He had 12 targets last night, and he got 6 of them. So it's obviously something needs to change. Their season's over.
No, I definitely agree. They played themselves out of the playoffs because the defense was just absolutely atrocious. Like, they're 3-6 when they allow more than 25 points, but they're 5-1 when they allow less than 25 points, which is big because 25 points is a lot.
Absolutely.
That means the offense is doing their job. They're scoring 4 or 5 touchdowns a game, but the defense just isn't pulling their weight.
No, exactly.
And that's not a playoff team.
No.
Especially in the NFC, a very strong NFC this year. But I think what Dan Campbell needs to do is defensively, he needs to find those guys. I know they're a little injured with Brian Branch is out, but yeah, they need to find some more consistency on the defensive side, stopping the run game. They just get thrown on every day. Like, it's open season over there in Detroit. But yeah, I think they're really missing Ben Johnson bad as well.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like his locker room presence as well. He was a very good coach. I know everyone loved him in Detroit, even the fans. And it just kind of sucks because this Lions team is very talented.
Absolutely.
They just couldn't come together to win enough games to make the playoffs this year.
Here we go. Moving on. We're going to go quick through this last game. We got the Patriots at Ravens, and the Ravens season looks to be over after a choking loss to the Patriots. Lamar Jackson did leave early. Snoop Huntley stepped in. He didn't play too bad, but, he couldn't lead the team. I mean, the Ravens did lead late, but, Drake May just takes over. His last 3 quarters of football, he had 344 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Didn't have a great first quarter, but absolutely turned it around. Derrick Henry looks like the only consistent weapon in Baltimore as of right now. This might be the last time we see this version of the Ravens, and I expect, John Harbaugh to be gone at the end of the season. And for New England, their first clinch since 2021. Big moment for them.
Yep. Shout out to Mike Vrabel, first-year head coach for him. Not first year, but he's coached before. But first-year team, yeah, really good. Pretty much one of the top 5 teams in the league. But I believe this Ravens Super Bowl window is still open, but without John Harbaugh. They just need a different outlook on the game, and he's just been there too long with no success since that Super Bowl win. But what do you think about that?
No, I think they need to go in rebuild mode. It's kind of like what's going on with my Cardinals right now, I would say. There's a point where you have a good team. You're just not going to win anything. You do have a good quarterback, but he's constantly getting injured. There's a point where you just got to realize you need to stop and rebuild, because you're never going to win anything because you got too many guys that are making way too much money. You just need to revamp the whole roster.
Right.
And that doesn't mean getting rid of Lamar Jackson, because he's still, still at a good age, but you need to just take a year or two and rebuild this roster, especially if a new coaching staff. I don't think this team's near winning a Super Bowl. They couldn't even make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree that if they can rebuild within 1 and 2 years, Lamar's only 28 years old.
Mhm.
He'll be 30, 31 by the time you're up and
Mhm.
ready again. I definitely agree.
Here we go. Our debate topics, this week we got a bunch of new things that we want to go over. So we got our QB temperature check. We're gonna start with. We're gonna do some quarterbacks who didn't play very well this week. So how the temperature check works, we're grading quarterbacks on a scale of 0 to 5 based on trust, consistency, and where their game is trending right now. Um, this isn't about one game or 1 week, or one pass. It's about how confident we feel with them right now. 5 is on fire. Everything's clicking. 4 is hot, playing really good football. 3 is warm, kind of in the middle. 2 is cold. Questions are starting to stack up. And 1 is ice cold. Confidence is low, and you don't trust them. Like I said, we don't just go based on 1 week. We're going, last couple weeks, the
Mhm.
whole season. So I'm going to start with my first guy. We got Bo Nix. I'm going to put him at a 4. Even with the loss this week, the last couple weeks, Bo Nix has been hot. Um, And the production's really good. Like I said, even in the loss, he still threw for 363
Mhm.
yards, kept Denver's offense at least moving a little bit. They almost made a little comeback at the end, but he's having a legit year. I mean, he's had 3,600 passing passing yards and 24 touchdowns, but he obviously hasn't been perfect. He's obviously, uh, you know, hasn't been what he's the sixth overall pick, but he's playing winning level football, and it obviously shows. Broncos are 12-3.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that rating. I'm gonna go with that rating as well as a 4. He's not a 5 just yet. He's been consistent, just came off that 11-game winning streak, but yeah, he's been looking great all year, to be honest. He steps up when he needs to with that comeback against the Giants. Just playing what he needs to do to win games, and that's what you need to do in the NFL. You're not going to dominate every team, which is understandable, but he just does everything I think correct what Sean Payton wants him to do, and that's why they're a 12-3 football team and already in the playoffs looking to lock up that number 1 seed.
No, absolutely, and I agree. Moving on, we have Jordan Love. I put him at 3. I might be one of the biggest Jordan Love haters out there. I think he's extremely overrated, but he does have talent, but the week to week trust isn't locked in. He's been incredibly inconsistent, but he definitely has shown flashes of being a good quarterback. He left the Bears game with a concussion, and the availability is part of the temperature check.
Right. Yeah.
Um, when he's out there, you can see the ceiling, but I can't put him high because he's obviously been very inconsistent, and he's been struggling with a couple injuries throughout the last couple seasons. So uh, if I'm not sure if I would want Jordan Love on my quarterback, especially like as a Giants fan. So I'm going to put him at 3 right now, which he can go up, he can go down pretty damn easily.
I don't think he can go down super easily, but I'm gonna leave him as a 3 as well. I just think, yeah, with the availability, he's kinda been struggling a bit, and, just playing some I know he's playing a little harder competition these past few weeks, and he honestly really hasn't stepped up at what he needs to do, and that's why I'm gonna leave him at a 3. But he he's on the rise of going up. They can definitely if they win a playoff game or 2, he's easily one of the top 10. Yeah, I've been saying it all year. I believe he is top 10. He can be that guy. He's shown that those signs of that Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre type of what they've seen in Green Bay, and he can win games when he needs to step up. Just like Bo Nix, he can win games when he needs to. You know?
Absolutely. And, I can see that he could get to that level, but I don't think he's even close to it right now, especially how he's played bad versus good
Yeah.
competition. Moving on, Baker Mayfield, I have him at a 2, and he's not at a 1 because he hasn't played like absolute shit. He's had a lot of late game mistakes, and it keeps showing up, and it's costing them. The Bucks lose 23-20 this week, and he throws the game sealing interception, which might not be his fault. It might be Mike Evans' fault but we don't know what the route was. But at the end of the day, he hasn't played competent football, and it's obviously shown why the Bucks are 7-7 now. Or are they 7-8? 7-8. So it's obviously shown. You know, he was looking like an MVP at the beginning of the season, but right now he's not looking very good. Um, Definitely have one of the worst, I would say, seasons of his career, stretch at least.
Easily one of the worst
Tampa's dropped
stretch.
6 of their last 7. Um, he'll give you a drive, but he'll give it right back, and that's why I put him at 2.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the rating. He's close to a 1 for me because he's just been playing really bad lately, and the defense has done their job, I feel, and the offense just really hasn't done it for the Buccaneers. And but I'll leave him as a 2 for now, but he's kinda trending towards a 1, especially
Absolutely.
because he really hasn't been playing super well. Been playing some weak competition, lost to the Saints, um, a big loss to the Panthers, needed that win, but you just gotta play better, man. Yeah, I think offensively, they just need to be better.
Absolutely. Moving on, we have CJ Stroud. I put him at a 2. Stroud's cold because, you know, the Texans are winning games, but he's playing more like a game manager than a guy, you know, scaring teams, and obviously showed versus the Raiders when they won by 3. Um, he put up 187 yards on 23 to 35 passing and 1 touchdown. That's really quiet, especially versus one of the worst defenses in the league. You know, Houston is winning games, but I'm not watching and thinking that, you know, CJ Stroud's going to carry them to 3 straight playoff games, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always liked CJ Stroud. You know, I've liked him for the last couple of years, but he's really been not very good. And his backup, I would say, has been better than him.
Mm. Yeah, that's kind of a tough thing to hear, especially because CJ Stroud had a really good rookie year. But I'm gonna have him at a 3, especially because they've been winning football games, which is the main goal as a quarterback. And I know he really looked super great through all those games, but as long as you do just enough to get those games, you're gonna win. But he could trend down very quickly because you're going to play some very high-powered offenses. So you need to have that high-powered offense. I know you get one of the best defenses in the league, but they're still going to drop maybe 21 to 30 points.
Yeah.
You need to be able to outscore that, and I don't think CJ Stroud can do that currently in this situation.
Moving on, our last guy, you know, Jackson Dart, you know, one of our, you know, favorite quarterbacks here. Um, I put him at 3. You know, he's a rookie, you know, and he's had a lot of flashes of his great potential, but the lows are rough, especially after his outing
Yep.
versus the Vikings. He went 7 of 13, 33 yards and a pick. You know, I'm not going to kill him, you know, for a rookie struggling, but right now it's still a development phase and not a trust to win it phase. You know, obviously has shown that the Giants are, you know, 2 and 13. But, you know, Jackson Dart definitely, once he actually gets his offensive weapons back, he's going to be good. That's why I put him at 3 and not necessarily a 2 or a 1.
Yeah, I'll leave him as a 3 as well. Yeah, really probably the worst game of his career.
Oh, absolutely. Of his
This
life.
game, that last against the Vikings. Vikings gave him a lot of different looks defensively, and I just don't think he could really decipher that defense, that Brian Flores defense. I think the offense for the Giants has really struggled since Daboll's departure. Kafka just he's kind of running the same plays there, but Jackson Dart's throws just really haven't looked as good as what they were 3 or 4 weeks ago. A lot of overthrows, not throwing guys where they're, like, not leading them well. I know there's a lot of drop passes from Bummy Slayton,
Oh,
but which is a big blow, to your confidence 'cause it's wide open, you gotta catch the ball, but,
absolutely.
um, I just hope it's not a big deal that Dable is gone, and hopefully when he gets those top guys back, Neighbors and, Scadaboo back, that I'll have more confidence. The offensive line has looked great for a Dart, and I think he has taken some sacks he
Mhm.
can't avoid. But, yeah, I'm gonna leave him at a 3, just kinda neutral for me.
Absolutely. And moving on, you know, who's rising, who's cooling, and who's getting overrated based on wins alone. We have our contenders versus pretenders. And let's start with the Denver Broncos. I'm putting them at a contender. You know, they did have a bad loss versus a great, you know, a Jacksonville team that's been great the last couple weeks. But you know, even with the week 16 loss, they're still 12 and 3 and still in control of the AFC West and the top seed. Their offense has been still has been great all season long, and their defense still generates pressure with 60 plus sacks on the season. Bo Nix still has the stretch where he's been one of the best, you know, second year quarterbacks in the league, and he's been leading this Broncos team. So I'm not like worried about the Broncos because their defense is great and everyone can have a bad game. You're not gonna obviously go 17-0, but one bad week doesn't erase 12 wins in a system that works. They're built for the postseason, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely agree because you need a top defense, but I just feel like this offense is a little too inconsistent at
Mhm.
times, especially against bad defenses. So I'm caught in between being a contender versus pretender. I'll go with the pretender.
Really.
I feel like they've played a lot of inconsistent comp so far. Wins over the Giants, Cowboys, Raiders, Commanders, Raiders twice, and they're really only good win. They have two good wins against the Eagles and the Packers. Other than that, they really haven't played anyone else outside the Jags, which they lost to. So I guess they're 2-1, but I just feel like they haven't played the high powered teams
Mhm.
like the Seahawks or the Rams or the Pats. I'm gonna go with the pretender on this one.
Okay. Moving on, we have the Buffalo Bills, and I put them at a contender. They're a contender because they're 11-4 and they're trying to, win the AFC East right now, and they're closing in on a good playoff spot. They have one of the most, league's most balanced attacks. They have James Cook. He's been one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. The Bills defense, made key plays to, stop the Browns this week. Even with some half quarter performances, there's still a team that you fear in January because they've been there before. It's one of those teams in the AFC that have been there. Teams
Mhm.
that are typically in there, like the Chiefs, Bengals, Ravens. They're probably not going to be there this season, so that definitely opens the door for the Bills. They don't always look pretty, but they keep winning games, and that's what contenders do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely a contender. And to be honest, they're my Super Bowl favorite. They just do what it takes to get the
Mhm.
win. Defensively, they look very well. They got that top quarterback, Josh Allen, really good slot guy with Khalil Shakir. Um, I feel like they just do what it takes to win, and that's what you need in January to win football games to win the Super Bowl. And I feel like
Absolutely.
they have what it takes, and they're my Super Bowl favorite currently.
Moving on with Texans, I put them at a pretender. And, they are 10-5. The record looks good, but they just got a tight win over the one of the worst teams in the league, the Las Vegas Raiders. Sorry. You could say the same thing about the Bills, but why this matters? Their offense efficiency only in close games, and even when they win big games, the scoreboard rarely reflects dominance. They haven't punched above elite teams yet, and the
Mhm.
most advanced projections still treat them as a one and done threat. I mean, they're surviving. They're not imposing. This feels like, pretenders DNA.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. They're definitely a pretender. Just not playing too consistently offensively to win football games. Like I said before, CJ Stroud just kind of playing scared out there,
Mhm.
kind of just being a game manager, not doing enough to really be that guy out there and really push them forward. So yeah, I'm having pretender.
Moving on, we have the Los Angeles Rams, and I got them as a contender. They're constantly, ranked, top of the power rankings. Still the fifth seed in the NFC. Their offense is, among the most explosive in the league. They beat playoff teams when it counts, but that Seahawks loss definitely hurt them a little bit. Probably their confidence a little bit going into the playoffs here soon. But they're not just scoring; their defense has been good outside of that bad week. So, I mean, I think they're definitely one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. They got the experience, they got the amazing head coach, you got the veteran quarterback who's won it before. So, I think that gives off everything that you want out of a contender, and I think the Rams definitely can win it all this year.
Yeah, definitely a contender team easily. Offense looks great, defense looks great. Although they did just fire their special teams coordinator,
Mhm,
which could be I don't think it will affect them too much. But yeah, I think special teams they really haven't looked as good, well rounded as
mhm,
the Seahawks, which is why the Seahawks are a little better than them. But yeah, I think with the veteran that they have, the veteran guys, people that have already won the Super
mhm.
Bowl winning head coach, Super Bowl winning quarterback, defensively they've looked good. Uh, yeah, easy contender here.
Moving on to our last team, we got the Green Bay Packers, and I put them at a pretender. Green Bay's 9-5-1. Their record looks solid, but the process has definitely been shaky. Their offense hesitates on drives. They rank middle of the league in efficiency, and they're slipping, while teams around them are rising. We're close to the playoffs, and there's no sense that a real threat to knock off a contender when it matters most. Uh, you know, J- Jordan Love just got hurt. Micah Parsons is out, and I mean, I would say this team's good enough to get into the playoffs, but they're not. They're not built to go deep.
Definitely agree. With the injuries on both sides of the football, definitely a pretender. Just not enough. I think the AFC or the NFC was just a little too strong this year for them,
Mhm.
and they just really couldn't compete compete as well as some other teams. So
Uh,
definitely pretender.
Absolutely. Now we have our next topic, a new topic that we want to go over. It's kind of similar to the quarterbacks, but we have our coaching stock watch. We're treating head coach like stocks. Every week their stock either goes up, down, or stays. You know, how they actually coached in game decisions, whether the team's actually getting better and, the results. So we are a 5 level scale, strong buy, which would be a 5, all the way down to strong sell would be a 1. So starting off with John Harbaugh, I have him at a 2, which is going to be a sell. Harbaugh's stock is really sliding because the Ravens aren't who we expected, coming into this year. They're sitting at 7-8, a big step back from back to back double digit wins, seasons. And, they've shown that they can, have dominant games. Like they just shut out the Bengals, who has had a great offense all year.
Mhm.
But they started slow and they never actually fully recovered. And now they're fighting just to get in, which doesn't look like that's going to happen. And that's not mark of a coach rising. It's one really on the hot seat and under pressure. John Harbaugh has proven, long term that, but right now the team's inconsistencies has his stock, trending down.
Yeah, I got him at a 1 here. This is an
Yeah.
instant sell for me.
Hmm.
He's shown time in and time out that those big games, he just chokes. First couple of weeks kind of just didn't his team didn't perform well. They didn't win games. They sold a big game against the Bills
Yep.
week 1, right? Big fourth quarter lead sold. Last night they didn't again. They sold again. They
Mhm.
they that was a must win game for them to really give the Steelers some pressure, but they just couldn't get it done. And I think John Harbaugh's time in Baltimore is done.
No, absolutely. And I could see that. I think he should definitely be done as well. Moving on, we have Mike Tomlin, and I have him at a hold, which would be a 3. And Mike Tomlin, just because the results matter, even if there's a debate about direction,
Mhm.
Steelers just beat the Lions, improved to 9-6, and Tomlin, holds the record for most consecutive 500 plus seasons. Pittsburgh obviously hasn't exploded offensively, but they're winning games. They're controlling, they control the division, and that's solid. Even if there's a noise about the ceiling of how this team play, the fall. But for now, I would say Tomlin stays. But I think he definitely should go. But steady results keeps the stock afloat.
Right.
Even there's a question about big game impact.
Yeah, this one's so tough because this guy constantly has winning seasons
Mhm.
after winning season, but it's only 1 or 2 games over 500. But I'll keep him as a hold for now. I know I've been saying they should just get rid of him no matter what, but after that big win against the Lions, they've shown that they can win defensively, but it's just tough for the Steelers because you don't want to get rid of a guy that's shown that he can win, but he really hasn't done it since Ben Roethlisberger has left, and what was that 2011,
Yeah,
2010? Really hasn't had much playoff success since that. Hasn't been to the AFC Championship for a while, and that playoff hope stuff. It's just like you gotta win in the playoffs. I know you're winking the playoffs, but do you win?
yeah,
I feel like it's a big question, and I know I've been saying they do what it takes to get wins, but they just don't do what it takes to get wins in the playoffs, and that's I feel like the biggest thing.
absolutely. Moving on, we have Todd Bowles, and I have him at a strong sell. Bulls gets a strong sell because Tampa Bay's fell really hard after a hot start. The Bucks were 6-1, or 6-2, sorry, early, but then lost 6 of their 7 down the stretch. They now sit at 7-8. I mean, yeah, you started strong. You won a Super Bowl for this team. Finishing this way pulls your stock down, and I think he's been one of the worst coaches in the league the last 8 games of the season, and that's what actually matters.
I don't even think he won the Super Brian Burns or whatever. I don't think he won the Super Bowl.
Oh, really?
Well, he wasn't the head coach.
Oh, yeah, Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians was the head coach.
I think he was on
But
the staff.
he was the defensive coordinator, then they promoted him the head coach. But yeah, I think he's a hold for me. I think he's done like the past couple of years. He's won the South in a very weak South, although. But I think he can get it done and hopefully hold on to his job here. I think he's a good coach.
Absolutely not. Moving on, we have another terrible coach, Zach Taylor, and I have him at a strong sell. Taylor's a strong sell because the Bengals are missing expectations for the third straight year. They're nearing they missed the playoffs already. They're 5-10. After a year of higher hopes, there's league chatter about his job security. Going from stable, playoff presence to missing contention usually crushes stock quickly in this league. And it's just the fact that this defense has not gotten better and this offense has been, absolutely not what they should be. But at the end of the day, he definitely should be fired. And when your team regresses that hard, your stock doesn't just fall, it crashes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I got him at a 2 here, but yeah, I think they just kind of need a different locker room look, different culture look for the team, and because I feel like everyone's kind of checked out with their top guys, and it's a big loss. Zach Taylor looks good, made that Super Bowl run, but really hasn't done much since.
Mm-hmm. Moving on with Mike McDaniels of the Dolphins. I have him at a buy at a 4. I don't think the Dolphins have been really that awful. They definitely started off bad, but they obviously have been trending in the right direction. He does make bold decisions under pressure, but when you have such a terrible quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, which he just got benched, it's going to be hard to win games. And McDaniel has shown that he's willing to pivot with starters like Quinn Ewers now starting. I mean, that's kind of flexibility decision makers love, even if the results weren't perfect this year. But McDaniel's stock isn't tied to just wins; it's tied to adaptability, and we saw that this week that he's obviously can show. I mean, they had a terrible game, but it's shown that he can definitely be the quarterback of this coach of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, he's got a really high-powered offense, but I think you need to change up the offense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna keep him as a hold around a 3. The offense has been a little too predictable at times, and these too many trick plays, like it's getting kind of messy, and it's really affected the entire team. But I think he's a good head coach. They've won games, but they really haven't won those big games that they really need to win. I think Tua, it's tough because he's shown that he can be really good, but I think with the receivers kind of aging, it's rough for the Dolphins.
For sure. So now we're gonna go. Who's actually the MVP? Right now, the odds are looking at Matthew Stafford winning, and then we have Drake May closely falling behind him. Then we have a bunch of dark horses and Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and even Caleb Williams. And who do you think is going to come out with MVP this season?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. It's going to be a Stafford. He's just shown time and time out that he can really do it, and
Absolutely,
he's won a lot of games this year. Been very protective with the ball, throwing a lot of touchdowns, and he's the favorite. And I'm going to take the favorite here.
absolutely, and I also agree. Let's go over our draft impact watch. Right now, teams that we're looking at is Giants, Raiders. We got the Poop Bowl coming up. The Browns send that third. Jets moved up with the loss. They're at 4th. Titans and Saints both dropped with the wins. Every loss matters for these teams now, and whoever wins the Poop Bowl is probably going to get the first overall pick here. Let's go Raiders. Now we're going to go over one take that we definitely overreacted on in the last podcast episode. So I'm going to say Justin Herbert couldn't win big games, and it obviously shown that they dominate over the Cowboys, and he played absolutely great. So I got to give the props to the Chargers and Justin Herbert. So I can admit that I was pretty wrong.
Yeah, one thing I overreacted on was the Packers were better than the Bears. After that Packers win at home a couple weeks ago, I thought they pretty much had it locked up, but Packers just didn't show up. But I believe that the injuries on both sides of the ball is a big decision, but good teams can see through that and still win big games.
No, absolutely.
And the Bears have done it. They've won the big games, and the Packers didn't. So I overreacted on that. The Bears are better than the Packers currently.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, we have our upset for week 17.
Yeah.
Our lock and our don't even bother watching this game. So my upset, I got the Vikings over the Lions. My lock, I got the Rams over the Falcons on Monday Night Football, and then my don't watch this Titans versus Saints game.
All right, so I'll take my lock of the week as give me the Bills over the Eagles.
Really?
Bills over the Eagles.
That's a lock?
That's a lock. The Eagles have shown in and out that they really just can't compete in those big games. They just beat up on the bad teams. And so for upset of the week, I'm gonna take the Colts over the Jags.
Really?
You know, they get DeForest Buckner back, the Colts. I think those are gonna start Rivers. I know the Colts are pretty much out of the playoffs, and the Jags, they're pretty high, but someone needs to bring them down. I think the Colts will. And then a game of the week, I'm not even going to touch. Cardinals Bengals. It's just two teams already eliminated. It's kind of boring.
So the closeout. What game are you going to be watching this week?
Well, big game. First overall pick contention here. First and second overall. Giants Raiders. Winner gets the first pick. Essentially, I'm watching that.
One game I'm going to be watching Seahawks versus Panthers. You know, those are two big implication games for each division, you know, even seeding in the playoffs. But, you know, this game tells us everything about the two teams that we're about to watch. You know, the Poop Bowl is going to be pretty good. So I definitely will be watching
Tune in
that.
the Poop Bowl. Tune in the Poop Bowl.
But, you know, that's it for week 16. You know, if you're rocking with us, make sure you follow us on, you know, Instagram, X, over here on Spotify, YouTube, our first video on YouTube. So
TikTok.
Follow us on TikTok. Clips are going to be coming. You know, our debates are going to get better next week.
Yes,
we're going to fighting. We'll be back next week for week 17. Make sure you tune into our NBA episode that will come out Friday. We might have a special guest. So, but this is Beat the Clock podcast. Once again, I am your host, Ryan MQ.
I'm your co-host, Big Ant. Appreciate y'all listening in to BTC.
Yes, sir. And we'll see you guys soon.